is Amanda Morrison. I am a Throughcare Practitioner for Action Against Stalking. I am here today with Marnie, who has experienced stalking behaviours and has had quite a journey. And Marnie is willing to tell her story to give victims a voice. I'm sure many people who have experienced stalking behaviours will relate to what Marnie has gone through, and we hope to learn quite a bit. So thank you so very much, Marnie, for being here and being willing to speak to us and give victims a voice. If you could, maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, Marnie, and then maybe give us a brief outline of what the relationship was to your stalker.
I'm Marnie Taylor. I met my stalker in 2012 after my marriage broke down, and was in a relationship with him for maybe 2 years, and it ended. And we'd stayed in touch off and on, and helped him. He come back to me, I think, maybe 2014, asking for help with his business. He got in a bit of trouble with his business and he'd asked for some help. And with our family, we helped him out on a number of occasions. And then he come back in 2016 and he took over another business and asked me if I would like to work with a firm. I first of all said no. He was a bit persistent and asked if I could do a trial for him. I wasn't working with him. He was already in another relationship with someone at the time. He always kept in touch with me throughout this. He'd always kept back and forward in touch with me. And then he asked me to do a trial.
When you were in a relationship with him, so before it split, was it a good relationship? Or did you notice any signs of domestic abuse, control, coercion, any sort of behaviors like that?
His behaviour was, at the start he was very, very full on. He was very, he was very full on. He seemed to, he took over. Suddenly he wanted to be in places where I liked. He moved his life to a place where I was going to move to, which I found odd. Then he would disappear for weeks on end, which I found strange. And then I realised he was seeing other people, so the relationship fizzled out. He was seeing other people, so it just fizzled out. And then he seemed to. Then I'd moved house at the time. He wanted to get married and things, and then I decided it wouldn't work out, and it just fizzled out. But he seemed to keep coming back, and then he didn't know where I lived at one point, and he decided he would come and look to see where I was. He come to find me. He had said at one point. I can remember thinking that was quite odd. He was looking for my car, where my new house was, my new flat was, and he found my car, and he had my phone number, and he says, "Oh, I don't know where you live, but I found your car." I never thought too much about it at the time, but going back now, when this when the incident, the main incident happened, it is very strange, scary. Going back, that you see the build up to the stalking. But going back to that time, he was in a relationship, but still pursuing me. He, he got in difficulty with his business, and my family, the Taylor family, always helped him out. They knew a lot of people in business, and continued to put him in touch with people to help him at the time, which I feel he took advantage of. And eventually over the years, he come back and he says, would you work for me? Would you help me? I've taken too much on. And first of all, I said no. I had my own business to run. And eventually he says, I says no. I said, it would have to give up some of my own business to do this. He says, would you just have a trial over the 2 weeks? And I decided I'd like to do something new. I thought, well, I'll just try. I wasn't actually working with them. So I thought, well, I'll give it a go. And when I did do it, it was in logistics. I decided to do it. And I did. And I really actually liked it. I really loved it. And I decided to do it. And I decided to work with both my own business and that. But I had to give up part of my own business to do it. And he did know this. But this was my big mistake, to do that. This was, I think, part of the control that I just didn't see. This was in 2016. And I really did enjoy doing what I'd done. It was very, logistics is very fast and very full on and very up and down. And I just really I did like a challenge. It was a full-on day. My boys had grown up. I didn't have the school run to do, and I just really did enjoy it. It was, you were working with the drivers, we were doing PODs. It was, one day, every day was different.
And when did things sort of change for you in 2016?
The that business in Falkirk, when the business, he'd lost his operator's license for that business. So that part of the business had to go into liquidation. So I had to help him with that. Unfortunately, he didn't really do things by the rule book. So I stayed with him and I helped him with all the drivers. And he doesn't really do things by the book. So I had dealt with all that for him. He run away from things. So I took that on full on and faced up to the drivers. And it was unfortunate that it was Christmas. So it was telling drivers that they'd lost their jobs over Christmas. So I had taken that on. I dealt with the receivers and things. And he asked me then to work for him with his other company, Total Logistics. And that was based in Uddingston, in Glasgow, in Keedwells. So I said no. I said I didn't want to drive that far away. I said it was a lot of fuel, it was a lot of miles on my car. And he said, no, I will give you a fuel card to go there. That'll, use the fuel card. And so I decided, right, okay, I'll do that. He had no one else to work with him. The girl that was there, she didn't want to work for him anymore. I don't know what happened. She didn't want to, but when I got there, the office was a complete mess. Everything was everywhere. So I tidied all the office up and done it my way and got on with it. And I still liked it. I still enjoyed doing it. But that's when things started to go a bit. After work, he would say to me, because he worked from his house in Bridge of Allen in Stirlingshire, he would say to me, because I was working for myself as well, so I would leave my house maybe 7 o'clock in the morning. I was going into Edinburgh, and then I was going into Uddingston, and then he would say to me, could you pop past Bridge of Allen and drop such and such off? And then, my day was just getting longer, and really, he didn't really need me to do any of this, because everything could be sent via email, or it could be scanned over, so it was just, I really need you to do this, I really need you to drop that off, I really, so, and if I didn't do it, he was just getting naffed off with me, or I was getting sacked, or he was just getting angry with me. And then I would find I was getting home and I just wanted to kick my shoes off and put my Uggs on and, just have beans on toast or something and go for a run. And I was getting home about 7 o'clock, and he would, I'm just popping through, I'll just pick you up and we'll go to get something to eat. And I was like, well, I've had something to eat. I don't want to go for something to eat. Well, I'll just pick you up. But, well, I'm on my way now. You just have to come. I says, well, I've eaten. you know, really it's don't want to have something to eat in a fancy restaurant. You always go to a fancy restaurant. Don't really want to have something to eat. But if you said no, there was no such word as no. You had to go. And if you didn't go, if you did go and you didn't eat, he would say to you, "Oh, you're not having something to eat? Are you just going to sit there and not have something to eat? Are you not going to have a glass of wine? Are you are you just going to have a starter? Oh, for God's sake, you're just going to sit there and not have something to eat?" I mean, it just was repetitive. It was just so you were force feeding yourself,
Just
and
to appease them.
it was just to appease them, yeah. And this was, and your stomach would just be, if you didn't, and sometimes I'd come home and just leave my phone, put my phone on charge upstairs, and just potter about downstairs, and if I ever went upstairs and he'd phoned, my stomach would turn, oh God, he's phoned, and I wonder what he wants. Oh God, I hope he's not on the way, and I don't want to go for some, I don't want to, I don't want to go for something to eat. I mean, I felt a bit spoiled, to be honest. I didn't want to go to a fancy restaurant on a Wednesday night. I just, so I ended up just, even when he did come, I would just have Ugg boots on and tracksuit bottoms, and is that how you're coming out? And I was like, well, yeah, I just because I just didn't want to go. So eventually we moved the office there, and then he was getting in difficulty with money. He really just didn't pay bills. So we were trying to help him with that, and then he was asking me all the time to borrow money for him, which was a concern. And then he wanted to move the office he moved the office to Bridge of Allen, just off the high street, just from down from where he lived. Uh, I think it was in the May. I think that was in the May. And I actually moved everything. I'd actually cleared the office. I'd actually cleared all the office in Uddingston, and I I got the removal people. I'd cleaned all the office. I'd had people to come in and paint it because it had to be left how it was. I cleaned it the other side. I'd made sure everything was, he never lifted anything. I'd done all the files, put everything, sorted everything, done it all myself. He, he, he never touched anything. He didn't need to lift a finger with anything. I'd done it all, put everything back together. And as soon as it was, he'd so I'd set everything back up, and as soon as that, it seemed to be, this is when it really got full on, from when we'd moved to Bridge of Allen. There was another particular time when he would come down about, I would maybe finish work about 5, half 5, 6, depending on, and I was meeting friends at one of the restaurants. So I've got friends that my son went to school in Bridge of Allen in sixth form. So I had a couple of friends there we used to meet, and we were meeting for dinner. And he'd come up to the office, and and I says, look, I says, I'm meeting some friends. I says, I'm actually meeting some friends, and literally it was 2-minute walk just to the roundabout and I says, I need to go. I says, I'm meeting friends. He says, well, I'll take you round. I'll take you round. And I says, no. I says, it's literally 2 minutes. It would take longer in the car to go in the car. No, I'll take you in the car. I says, no, literally, I'll walk. Please let me walk. I'll just walk. I need, I don't want to be late. No, I'll take you in the car. And I'll take you in the car. So he took me in the car. But in this restaurant, it's got windows, and the windows is outside. It's got an outside area, but the windows, they usually have the windows open and it was a hot day, so the windows was opened. So our table was inside, but all the windows was opened, and so the outside tables look like they're really, really next to the inside tables. They were left opened. So he dropped me off, and I went inside, and he sat right at the window, right next to us. He sat right at the table. So look, he was basically sitting.
How did that make you feel at the time?
I was embarrassed.
Okay.
I was embarrassed. I didn't know what to say. My friends were.
And did you explain to your friends that you knew this guy, or
Yeah,
did you just
they
kind
knew
of?
that I knew him. Yeah, they knew
Right.
he was.
And
Yeah.
how did they say anything to you?
No, they didn't, but they knew that. Yeah,
They knew something
they
was
knew. Yeah,
slightly off.
they'd
Okay.
said something late, I guess.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, that's yeah. It was just it was odd. They knew it was odd. They did. They knew it was odd that he'd sat there. He sat on his phone. He ordered a coffee and sat on his phone. So it
And did
was.
he wait for you to finish
No, he
that
didn't.
order?
He didn't wait. He sat. I think he had 2 coffees or something, and then he left. He didn't need to sit there. He could have sat. It was such a big area. That was, it was very, very odd. You know, it was.
And how long from that occurring to you sort of ending the business relationship? Or did anything happen between that restaurant and you ending that made you end the business relationship?
Well, oh, there was such a lot of things happened at this. There was a lot of build up. There was a if I didn't do things that if I said no to things, there was times that I come one day that I parked my car on the high street. I come to work one day and it was another warm day, unusual for Scotland. I know. Parked. I had been working in the morning. I'm up early, and I come and I had my laptop. Took my laptop out of the car, and I parked at the other end of the high street, and I picked up a sandwich. And I was early, and I thought, oh, I'll just walk to the office. I like to walk, so it wasn't any chore for me. And got to the office and finished work and come back, and the car was gone. And when you're up early and it's you come back about 6:15 and the car's gone, you think first thing you think about is where's the car? Where's the car's so car's gone? Somebody stole the car. Somebody stole the car.
Did you
And
phone the police?
and then no, I didn't phone the police. And I thought, oh, the car, where did I leave the car? Where did I leave the car? And they just said, oh, where did I leave it? And I've got the computer and I've got my bag, and I think, oh God, it's roasting, it's hot. Oh, I just want to go home. I'm tired and just want to go home. And I've got all the keys in the car for the house and work, my own business, and then I suddenly realised it's him. I knew it was him, and I know what he wanted me to do. He wanted me to phone him, and I thought, I'm not phoning him, and I'm not phoning him. He wants me to phone him. I'm not phoning him, and I burst into tears. I just burst into tears, but I had no choice but to, because I had no house keys, or I just went home. I didn't know I just was so destroyed, to be honest. I just was sorry. I could feel how I feel, to be honest, that moment, because I couldn't understand why he would do that, to be honest. Eh, I could feel myself there, to be honest, when he done that, because I don't get it. I didn't get it. So
you had to phone him then?
no, I didn't. I walked all the way up to his house, which is quite a walk, with the laptop on a very hot day when you're tired, and walked all the way up to the house, and I rung the doorbell, and he's standing there, and he says, oh, come in. And I says, no, I'm not coming in. And I says, he says, oh, he says, you left the car in front of that lady's shop. Now the car was in a space. It wasn't on a yellow line. It wasn't in a, he says, he says, the car was in a space. That lady phoned me and she was annoyed that it was parked in front of a shop. I was like, I didn't say anything, because we've just, what is there to say? There was just nothing to say. And he says, get in the car and I'll take you down to where. So he'd obviously seen the car, went back home, got the key, went down, moved the car into the car park where the co-op was, just not far, which to me is a trek in itself, that he'd have to do that.
And did you know he had a car key? for your vehicle?
No, no, I didn't know he'd had a car
So
key.
he'd acquired that
So he
at
did
some
at
stage
some
before that.
stage beforehand, yeah.
Right, okay.
So he just, as soon as he dropped me off, he just left. He never said anything, which I turned round, he was gone. And which was just a relief. I just didn't get why he'd done that. It was just, I think it was just, I didn't even ask why. You know, the woman didn't, I know the woman in the shop didn't phone him up to say, she wouldn't even know whose car it was.
Exactly.
Just wouldn't. So these were things that you just.
So when you broke the business relationship off, is that when things really started to escalate, or was it before that?
No, he uh, he owed me. I had let loan him. I had loaned him money to help him out with his cash flow, and I was trying to get this money back. I was trying to get the money back off him, and I'd asked him for it on a number of occasions, and I was trying to get, because I'd worked for him, and I was trying to get this money back, and then I was trying to just cut off from him. So this was me trying to break away from him. But he wasn't for. He kept saying to me, "I'll give you it back. I'll give you it back. I've got a loan coming. I'll give you that back. I've got money coming. I'll give it back to you." He kept saying he would give it back to me, and I thought, as soon as I get it back, I'll go. I will get away. You know. But he he just. But his behaviour was getting worse and worse and worse.
In what way?
He was he well he also I'd went away with friends, which was that was just a random. I went into Edinburgh one day. I think it was, if I can remember, it was a Saturday. I'd went into Edinburgh one Saturday, and I picked up a friend. I went in to see my oldest son, and I popped in to see him. It was just it was just a day that just happened. It just ended up happening. It wasn't planned. And he'd phoned me. Uh, uh, Rob had phoned me. That's his name, and he said, "Where are you?" I'd always have to have an excuse beforehand, because if I didn't have a good enough excuse, if I wasn't, does that make sense? If I didn't have, if I wasn't far enough away, if I was at home, he would, if.
He would just impose himself
Yeah,
on you.
yes, yeah. I had to make sure I was far away. I couldn't just be at home. If I was at home, I wasn't far enough away, if that makes sense, because he could just pop over, or he would say, "You could just come here." So I was in Edinburgh, and I says, "I'm visiting my son, my oldest son," and I was picking up a friend from the train station who was coming in from York, and this friend wasn't very well. Ended up it wasn't very well, so we ended up trying to get antibiotics for him at this point, and then we ended up somewhere else and somewhere else, uh, and then Robert ended up, unbeknown to me, outside my house, and my phone had been in an area where there was no service, so I wasn't getting any messages. But unbeknown to me, he was outside my flat, and this was in the August, and there was there was no lights on, so he was messaging me, and he was phoning round all my family, and my ex-husband, my sons, "Where's your mum?" and "Where's your mum's not in, she's not answering her phone," which it was embarrassing. He was phoning my mum, he was phoning my mum's sisters, he was just going around everybody. I was missing, and I wasn't missing. I'd already been in touch with I'd been in touch with I'd been in touch with all my family that day. My youngest son had spoke to me that morning. I'd spoken to my oldest son that day. I'd spoken to I don't think I'd spoken to my ex-husband that day, but there was no need for me to speak to my ex-husband that day. My mum, I think I'd spoken to the day before. It was just, he'd said, "Oh, I think we should phone all the hospitals." I was like, really? Just then on the next day, because I hadn't come home, hadn't come back, which I'm entitled to do. He got up the next morning on the Sunday. Max, Max, who was 19 at the time, he come to the door when Max was in. Max let him come in to the flat, and there's always a key on the back of our door because I'm always scared there's a fire. There's always a key on the back of the door, spare key. And Max allowed him to come in, and Max says, my mum's not in. And Max, he come in and then he left, and he took the key from the back of the door and he left because Max was still in at this point. Max left about 4 o'clock and locked the door, and he let himself in. And when I come back at about 6 o'clock, he was in waiting on me.
What was his excuse, being in your flat when you weren't there?
Well, he had been texting me, and he says to me, "You're sacked. I want the keys of my office. You're sacked. You want the keys," because he just couldn't. He just was in a rage that I never hadn't done anything. This is what he'd done. If you didn't do as you were told, you were. I mean, I'm telling you parts of what happened. This is such a lot that had happened. I mean, there was just loads of it. You're I mean, there was a friend there that was a witness to all of this, that the abuse that I mean, this one of the days I phoned him, he was screaming on the phone. He was on the hands free. There was someone, sitting there listening to it all, that he obviously didn't know about at the time. And because he says, where are you? I mean, his voice, the rage, and you hadn't done anything. It was just, I was thinking, what's the rage for? Just because I hadn't. I mean,
At this point,
because when I went to put the key in the door and it was the goodness in your stomach. And you're like, and he's 6'1". He's 6'1", and he's lying on your sofa with his hands behind, and I was like, this is what you do. And I mean, I didn't honestly think that he was. I really didn't think he would be. I really didn't think he would be there.
did you think at this stage, although you were uncomfortable with everything that he was doing, would you say that you had an acknowledgement of it being stalking behaviour at this point?
I didn't. I didn't. No, because I hadn't. No, I didn't think about it as being stalking. No, because I hadn't experienced. You don't think it's happening to you. You don't know. Not until somebody spoke to me. It wasn't until it was, somebody had actually says to me about the behaviour. That that when you. It was actually someone speaking to me and going, when they asked me, when somebody sat me down and says, go right back to the beginning. Right back to the beginning. Tell me the story from the beginning, because he asked me why I moved to where I'd moved to, because I'd moved to Linlithgow, and he says to me, why did you move? And I says, well, I've always wanted to move to I moved to Linlithgow because I want to move to Bridge of Allen. But this is as far as I can go just now because of my school run, because Max is still at school in Edinburgh, and this was my school run. I want to move.
So you had moved and changed locality at this point, and he moved to the same
He asked me
locality.
why he says, why did you move to, when I first met, he says, why did you move to Linlithgow? Because I had no connections with there. I says, I always wanted to move. I had a love of Bridge of Allen through my granddad. My granddad is buried at Blair Logie, just under Wallace's monument, and my granddad had a love of Blair Logie and Bridge of Allen, and that's where I wanted to move to after my marriage is broken up. And suddenly he buys a house in Bridge of Allen. I had no connections with Bridge of Allen. He'd moved up from Plymouth. He'd moved to Glasgow, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, he'd moved there. And
So,
so this was, so when we went back and we, you know, everybody had pointed out that he'd been imposing himself. And, you know, and when you, it was.
and what incident occurred that made you seek help from the police? So, how did things escalate to the point that you felt that you were now a victim of criminality?
It was, I think it was I think it was when he took when he, when he fired me, it was what happened was he, he sacked me, he fired me from my job, and he never paid me. He never paid me. And he come in the office. It was I think it was the October, it was the first week in the October. And it was, 2016. It was, no, we're on now 2017. Sorry, it was we were coming on to 2017. This is a, and during this time when he was, because this all got, you know, everything was just, my uncle was dying in this time as well, so I was trying to go back and forward to Glasgow to you know, to see him, and everything was just, everything, I just didn't seem to do anything right for him. I think I just wasn't giving him the time that he wanted, and I think it was just pressure. And on the 8th, I think it was the 8th of October, it was a Friday, I remember it being a Friday, and I got up and I went into Edinburgh with Max, and I had such a lovely morning with Max, and had breakfast, and I just had a lovely day with Max. And I was back into the office because I started in the afternoon. I got in, and I remember going into the office, and did he phone? Did he phone it first? Did he phone? He come into the office? I went into the office, and he come into the office. He come into the office, and he says, "Oh, the office is untidy, and it's dirty, and look at it." And I was like, "Oh, right." And I'm actually a bit of a clean freak, and everything was filed to within an inch of its life. It's never been as, I mean, the office that I'd come out of was such a mess, and everything was filed within an inch of its life. And I was a bit taken back by that, if I'm honest. You know, when you're thinking to yourself, and the PODs were all, you know, just it, and I was a bit, oh, right, okay. I thought, well, I was just a bit taken back by it at the time. It was like I was just being picked on for you know, and it was like he was in a bad mood, and well, he was in a bad mood. He was just in a really, and I thought, and I knew he was going to the dentist for some reason. I knew he had an appointment with the dentist in Glasgow, and I thought, thank goodness he's got an appointment with the dentist. He'll be away. And he'd left, so off he went. And the I went into the kitchen and I made a coffee, and I come back, and as I come back, before I got back, the phone rang in the office. So just as I come back to pick it up, it went off, and then my phone rang, but it was him. So I picked the phone up, and he says to me, he says to me, you're I want you out. You're fired. You're I'm bringing someone else in. I says, what do you mean? And he says, I'm bringing someone else in. And but I says, no. I says, well, can you not give me notice? I says, I've got a contract. A month's, you've got to give me a month's notice. I says, at least be fair and give me a month's notice. Because I'm there's only me that pays the bills in my house, and I says that fair's fair. You know, you've asked me always to give you 3 months notice if ever I've left. Be fair, at least give me 3 months. And he says, no, you're getting nothing. You're getting, and that's not how he said it. The language they used wasn't was awful, to be honest. He called me a very abusive, really very abusive, really extraordinarily abusive. And he's someone that didn't swear and didn't use language like that. He was very abusive. And I tried to stay calm when I was on the phone, and he says, I want you out, leave your keys on the desk, take what belongs to you and go. And I says, right, okay then. So I wasn't going to argue with him anymore, and that's what I decided to do. And I thought, right, that's just do it. That's fine. I'll just that I didn't want to stay actually after the language they used, and I left. He phoned on the I think he phoned me weirdly. He phoned me on the I think on the he tried to phone me on the Tuesday. I think it was the Monday or the Tuesday. Was it the Monday or the Tuesday? And I didn't pick up the phone. I thought, I just don't want to speak to you anymore. I thought that would be the end of it, but he didn't. And then you phone me now. You phone me now. You phone me right now, and you phone me now. I was like, no. I said, I don't want to speak to you. You phone me now, and and then he wanted the passwords. I gave him all the passwords for the computers, and I'd done all of that. I wasn't, give him everything that he wanted. And then he says to me, uh, could I meet him for something and whatever? And I said no. I said no. Could I meet? And I said no. I don't want to meet you. That was no. I don't want to meet you. And then he said, could I get send something back? So I can't remember. I think it was a key for something. So I had a key for something. So I sent that back, and I registered it. And he said he hadn't received it, but he'd signed for it, and he said he hadn't received it, but he'd signed it with his name, so he had received that. And then I decided he wouldn't pay me. He decided he wasn't paying me, so just somebody says, well, I'll just, and I was going to get my money, and he owed me money as well. Actually, I phoned him. I said to him, I says, look, I would like my money. I says, if you can't afford to give me it, we can do a payment plan. I'm quite happy for you to do a payment plan with it. I says, but I really would like my money back. You've had it long enough. And he had says, what effing money? And I said, I was like, right, okay then. I says, I've been fair again. And what effing money? And I was like, well, okay then. So I just was like, no, I just don't want to have. And he just shouted a load of abuse that day, and that was that. And I went to an employment lawyer, and I spoke to him. But after that, the abuse continued a little bit after that, and I just left it in the hands of someone else. And the day that person got in touch with him, he paid me my last wage out of the company, which I knew he would do, because he says, oh, she's being paid. But he paid me only then when that bit. But he was messaging me, and then he says, Marnie, the things that he's taking the key for your home, and things that he's done, and there was messages that he was continued to send, threatening messages to me, that he was sending messages. And he says, just report them, just you'll get a what is it called, a reference number. Just, and I says, no, I says, I just want to get away from him. I says, I just want to get away from him. And but at this time as well, he was continuing to pursue my mum.
Okay.
He was continuing to pursue my mum, and he pursued my son, my oldest son, and he continued to pursue my nephew.
And what was he doing? Phoning, texting?
Oh yeah, he continued to phone my mum till the day she died.
Wow.
Yeah, he continued to do that.
And did your family understand the situation?
No, sadly, no, they didn't. No,
Right.
don't, no. Sadly, some of them didn't, which is quite. Does that happen? Yeah, that's going to take a lot of understanding for me. That's going to take a lot of understanding for me. My mum sadly died, yeah, in 2020, September 2020.
I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, and it's, you know, because he's a narcissist. It takes, you know, you don't understand narcissism until you come across it, until you've been face to face with it. And he was, he's, you know, you just you don't get it. You just, because when the police did get involved, I said to the police, I don't, you know.
What made you pick up the phone and call the police?
What happened was with the police was they, when it got, when it was Ross, who was the employment lawyer, he had said, just report it. And I think they, one day when I come back, the police was actually at the door. And I come in and I says, oh, I says, what's this? Sorry, I says, what are you know, because we did never see the police like that. They come in and I says, oh, is there a pro? I said, they just, so we're just coming to see if you're okay. And I says, oh, I says, absolutely fine. And that was fine. And then it was one of the police officers. I'll not name her, but she was absolutely lovely, and she just she just spoke a wee bit about it. And I actually, to be honest, Police Scotland have been absolutely amazing with coercive behaviour. I mean, they really are. I couldn't fault them. That they really, they do have an understanding of it. I mean, really do understand. They really, and a lot of people don't have an understanding of it, and it's very hard to understand it. And when we didn't really realise that he'd taken the key for the flat until it was Max was there, and Max had, I thought Max had let him in, you see. We hadn't, I thought Max had let him in and left him in, until the police officer had said, I says to Max, for goodness sake, Max, why on earth did you allow him in here? You know, because Max is very polite, and you know, Max, and I says to Max, why on earth did you let him in here? Because I knew Max would feel uncomfortable. And I says, this is your home, why on earth did you let him in? And Max says, I didn't let him in here, I locked the door.
And then you went.
And then she said, oh, she says, he's took the key. She says, and then that's when she says, right, she says, that's enough. And that's when I think they realised he'd crossed the line. And then she left and she says, could we interview Max? And I said, no. I said, you can't. And he's 19. And he said, I don't mind, Mum. And I says, oh, no, I don't want you to be involved. And she says, and and because I can't go with them then, can I? And that I says, oh, no, you can't interview. No. And he says, Mum, I don't mind. I'll go. And she says, we'll look after him and we will be fine. And he says, I'm fine, Mum. And then the two come and he says, I'm fine. And he went down.
So after they interviewed Max, what was the next steps? Did they speak to him? Did they arrest him?
Max was interviewed. Well, what happened, and then I think there was another two police, I can't remember what way it went. There was another two police officers, and they got I can't remember what way it went round. There was another two police officers come, and they had says to me, they was the ones that went right back to the beginning to ask
to see the conduct of
the conduct of behaviour.
Yeah.
And they said this, and then this was, and then they says they went, because there was another time when my sister-in-law was there, and his behaviour was very strange on this day when he'd followed me into town, and my sister-in-law Laura, because he'd never even I was meeting my sister-in-law Laura, and he'd followed me into town, and he sat next to us again and wouldn't leave. He would just not leave me alone. So this was another day that was very concerning, and she was concerned, and she would not leave me to go home. You know, this was another day. So these two police officers come in, and they had taken the story, and they listened, and then at the end of it they said, could you go, well, they went away, and they says, come back, could you go away and think about it? Would you think about putting in is it a complaint? And so I says, oh, I don't know. I said, I don't know. And they come back down, and then they spoke to their sergeant. I come back down, they says, would you consider putting in a complaint? I says, oh, I don't know. So when I come back down, they said, if you don't put in a complaint, we're going to do it. So I says, well, what's the difference? And they says, well, if you do it, it's easier for us. If we do it, it's a wee bit harder. It makes. I says, right, okay then. I says, well, I'll not make your life any harder. I'll do it. So then that's when I put I thought, well, I'll not make your life harder then, you know. And then so I put we'd done the statement. We'd done the statement. Then he was taken in for questioning in that I think this brought us to November. He was taken in for questioning, and that was November. And in the January, my son was 21 in the January, and he was in the January, on the 8th of January, Max was 21, and this is only, and on the 7th of January, I think he was going to be up in court. I didn't really know what happened. I wasn't really familiar with anything what was happening. I got a phone call from one of my mum's sisters, and it said that he wanted to speak to me and mediate.
So he's now trying to contact you again through your family.
He was trying to contact, which was
when the police interviewed him, did they arrest him and put bail conditions at this?
Yes, I think yes they did.
Okay.
So I wasn't sure of what the process was because I hadn't known anything about it. I didn't know anything about it. So I got this phone call I said, no, I said, I don't want I don't want anything to do with him. I was actually really thankful for the peace, to be honest, just to be away from him. I said, no, I said, I don't want anything to do with him. He wants to mediate. He wants to mediate through me. And I said, no, I don't want to mediate with him. Don't want anything to do with him. And then on the 8th of, the only reason I remember it was because of Max's birthday, to be honest. And on the 8th of January, we'd got my mum through. We'd kind of got my mum through, and we'd had like a private dinner with my sister and her two boys and my mum and a family in Edinburgh. And my mum's phone kept ringing and ringing. I says, we don't want to have no mention of him of that night. My mum's phone kept ringing. Her phone's quite loud. And my ex-husband says that was him continuing to ring her. He must have rung about 15 times. Continuous to ring. And he had said to her, look, we'll block him from your phone. But she didn't want to block him from her phone. She didn't. He was never continued to he phoned her because he was desperate to try, and whatever he wanted to do, he wanted it. I don't know what he wanted.
Kept him close to you, maybe?
Yeah, just it was the link. It was the link. So this was the January, and then the first date for court was to come up in the March. But just to say something, that when he was arrested, he was given I think it was he was given a full arrest. I think, was it a full arrest? Was it called? He was arrested, and he was put in a cell, and he was
given around.
Well, he wasn't. He was let out later, but he was given a full arrest.
Okay. So he was let out on bail conditions.
And he was let out on bail conditions and everything. And then when he put in, he was because I had the civil case with him as well to get my money back. He actually trivialised it. He said that the bail conditions was his idea. He says he was only interviewed for less than an hour. Bail conditions was his idea. He gave these, and the arresting officer was the one, you know, I'll not give her name, but the arresting officer was it was, and I actually showed her this, and I says, goodness, I says, you'd have been as well sitting him down and giving him a cup of tea and biscuits. I says, that's just, and she says, she was actually furious at the way he'd, you know, explained this on this but she totally lied, you know. She said he was given like a full of arrest, and she says, no, that's not how it was at all. She said he was put in a cell at 4 o'clock, and he wasn't released till, he was given an interview, it was, and she says bail conditions. She says no. She says the bail conditions is up to the sergeant. It's not up to him. The bail conditions was imposed on him. She says that's not how, go to the police and say, I suggest that you put bail conditions on me. So, I mean, it was just
manipulating the whole way.
Yeah. I mean, what he wrote was going to a sheriff in a different court, but still to a sheriff. Just continuous.
So we're kind of now into the part of your story that I think is really important to highlight, and that is the victim's experience of the criminal justice system. And I know you have quite a bit to say on this. So your first appearance was to be in the march, I believe, for the criminal. Okay, so tell me what happened from that
It was to be in the march, and lo and behold, it was postponed.
Okay.
And it was postponed because he wanted me to give another I was to give another statement, to the police, which I'm told it was about I don't know what it was. It was about just to the police, the officer that was taking the statement said it was highly unusual to be presented with this. And I think this was another statement I think it was 6 hours, this statement I done. I think it was 4 hours on one day, and they come back another 2 hours the next day. Police were still very, very good, very, very patient. We went over everything. I thought, how am I going to remember any of this? We sat and we went through my phone. We went through Facebook. It was just on things that he said I'd been with him, which I hadn't. All the evidence he'd said I'd been to particular places with him, which I hadn't been. A particular restaurant that I'd been in, and lo and behold, I hadn't. I'd been there with my boys, or there. Uh, he just seemed to be presenting things to court that willy-nilly.
How many times was your court postponed journey?
There was 38 court dates.
38 court dates.
38 court dates. Yeah, I think, and yeah.
Okay, and
38 court dates.
From memory, but of course it's going to be very difficult to remember 38 incidents. Did you have to appear each one of those 38 times?
No, but I think there was 3 witnesses for the. There was 4 witnesses, including myself, for the prosecution, and I must have had about, I think the witnesses had 20 something citations sent, and I had more than that. I think the witnesses had, I think it was 22 citations, the witnesses, and I maybe had 25 citations. Yeah.
To appear. So did you appear each of those 25 times?
Just about, yes. Yeah, and they would be maybe cancelled the day before, or.
And what were the reasons for the cancelling that you?
Oh, just you don't get to know.
So they just say not
No.
appearing and give you another date, away you go.
Yeah, you don't get to know. You might get there, but you don't get to. You might get there. You might not get there. You might, you don't get to know.
And how long did it take to get it through court for you? So from that March, that first date appearance, how long until the actual?
Nearly 4 years, just under 4 years.
Right. So you had to live with that anxiety and that trauma in the build-up to 38 trial dates.
Yeah.
22 or 25 citations. How did that make you feel, Marnie?
Oh, just
I the word frustrated certainly wouldn't cut it.
No, disappointed that it can be very disappointed that, and to think that the taxpayers' money's just, I mean, 30 court postponements.
And was that his lawyer that in himself that was doing
Mostly, yes,
Yeah.
mostly,
So
yes.
just stall tactics
Stall
and
tactics, yes,
asking
yes.
for extra information or
I was taken to, it was, one of the postponements was, he wanted my phone, and the he wanted my phone, and the phone was never anything to do with the court proceedings.
he wanted your phone. Who's he?
Oh, sorry, the defence wanted my phone.
Right, okay.
And this was another form of control. And I'd went to the fiscal, and I'd said to the fiscal, do you want my phone? And the fiscal says, no, we don't want your phone. Your phone's not part of this. So the first thing I had said, well, if you want my phone, the same information on my phone is on his phone. So why don't you take his phone? So I had went to people I know. I luckily know a top psychologist, and I says to her, what do you think? And she says, no, don't give. She says, I'm really surprised at the court. This is a form of control. Don't hand your phone over. And I went to my community police officer and I says, what do you think? And he says, no, don't hand your phone over. I went to an ex-criminal lawyer. He says, you never hand your phone over to a defence lawyer. Absolutely not. I went to Anne. She says, no, don't hand your phone over. It's a form of control. Yeah. No, I wrote this letter to the court, to the sheriff. Mm-hmm. I said no. I wrote it to the sheriff, the defence and the fiscal to be handed out to the no, this is the reason. Mm-hmm. I was
what was the response to that?
Oh, this the so so they put me through hell, to be honest, but I continued. I just so so the police come well the police come to the door yet again. I got they come to take the phone off me at 8 o'clock on I think it was 8 o'clock at night. I was in on my own and quite embarrassed. And the police actually was very embarrassed, and they didn't know, because the defence can't have your address, they're not allowed to know where you live. The police didn't know if it was sent from the fiscal. It was sent from the fiscal's office, so we assumed that it was from the fiscal's office. So I was really upset that, because I thought the fiscal was on my side, I thought it was sent from the fiscal and not that it was sent from the defence actually to take my phone off me. So I automatically I thought that I had to hand my phone over. So this was a Friday evening. So the police was just, so when I says, do you want me to hand my phone over on a Friday and I've got no phone? And the police, they're actually dumbfounded. They said, they just says, but they eventually says to me, actually, you don't have to hand your phone over, Marnie. Do you realise this? I said, no, this is just write a statement to say that.
Okay, so Marnie, I just want to clarify a little bit here. We are at 38 court appearances, 25 citations for yourself, and now the police are at your door demanding your phone when everybody has told you not to hand that over. Do you think that your stalker was using his defense lawyer, the court, and the police to continue to stalk you at this stage?
Definitely.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Using the courts.
Yeah, right. And may I ask, after all of that journey and that 4 years, what was the court outcome at the end?
He was not guilty.
He was found not guilty.
Yes.
And how did that make you feel? Did you ever get reason for that, or?
No, just
Tell me about that day.
well, there was no transcript.
Okay.
So I just found out there was no transcript. So there was, so I can't, and there's.
So the court didn't transcribe. So was
So
it like a mistrial?
no, my evidence was given over 2 years ago to the fiscal,
Okay.
and I had been cross-examined by the the defence for 4 days, 4 separate days, over and over again, the same questions. So they were bound to be different all the time. So didn't understand why that was allowed over, and I didn't get why that was allowed by the sheriff, and I didn't. So how did he? And I've just actually just found out there was no transcript. Maybe last week, actually this week.
Wow.
I'm quite aghast by it.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't know how he would. I know that the sheriff takes notes, and I've also found out that the stalker has already done this before and used the same behaviour
With another victim.
with another victim. Yeah.
And was he found not guilty with that?
And he
as
was
well?
found out not guilty with that. Yeah. Same behaviour throughout the courts,
Okay.
and he got this victim to write a letter to the courts.
Okay. And when that not guilty verdict came in, how did you overcome?
How did I overcome? Oh, it took a while. I'm allowed to have a meeting with the fiscal, with the procurator fiscal. I'm ready to do that now, but I wasn't ready to do that at the time, and I didn't know if I wanted to do it. I'm now ready to do it, and I will do that in the next couple of months.
Okay.
I will do that. I am ready to do that.
So
Yes, and I did have another case with
your civil case.
my civil case, and I did get to see a lot of the evidence that was handed into the criminal case. And sadly, in a criminal case, I don't get to see that evidence. And I was able to answer every part of that.
In the civil case?
In the civil case, I could get to answer all of that.
Okay.
I could get to answer all of that.
Right.
And that is just so...
Did you win your civil case?
I did. I won my civil case.
Congratulations.
I put all that together myself. I done all that myself. I put it all together. I just sat and I put my bundle together. I stood up against his big firm of lawyers, and I think because I did do it myself, I had a friend that helped me who lives abroad, and the two of us just put our heads down and just got on with it.
Right.
And I think because I'd done it myself, I knew what I was doing. I just went through emails and correspondence that I had, and I done it. And he just... It's hard. It was hard to read a lot of it, but you just have to not take it personally. It's hard to read a lot of it.
Sort of disassociate.
You have to yes, and not take it personally. It's hard not to take it personally. Yeah, and had to rewrite my statement, and that's quite hard. You've got to relive it.
So after this experience that you've had, what advice would you give, for an example, to the Crime and Justice Commissioner in Scotland who wants to revamp the Scottish criminal justice system as more person-centered, trauma-focused? So as a victim who has been through this, what advice would you give them on where to focus to help this journey for victims and witnesses?
I think they have to put more time. I think they have to have more time to look at a case. I think there's too much of... I think they have to speak to the... I had more time to put into my civil case. I think the fiscal is there for the Crown, and for the not for the victim. They're there to to protect the the whole of the, you know, the UK. They're not there to protect, they're there for the community, aren't they? They're not there to protect
The particular victim.
the particular victim. You know, I haven't got any, they're not really there for me. I'm just a witness, stroke the accuser. And sometimes they can rush into court and they're grabbing the file and they're just flicking through it. My fiscal was, she was good, and she did, it could have just been thrown out at any point, because I think the hope, I think the defence hope that it just runs out if they keep postponing it. But it wasn't, you know, that they were determined to keep taking it because they knew that this behaviour had been done before in court by this particular person. But I think fiscals need more time to you know, to spend on it, and to I spent more time on my civil case and I won it, and that was just me doing it. And I just think they need more time to focus on things. They're just too much in a rush. They need, and there's no point in taking it. I just think there was no point. You know, you've got, I mean, as a sheriff, does he understand coercive behaviour? This behaviour continued throughout my case. He broke his bail conditions. He pursued my family. He pursued my family for these 3 and a bit years. He went round people, he went round restaurants, cafes, and he got statements from these people to say that he was such a lovely person, and that you seen me with Marnie, and didn't she look okay with me? I mean, that was irrelevant. I mean, these statements was read in court. I mean, these were just irrelevant. I mean, these people just did not know me. These people didn't even know my name. But he made out that they knew me, and they just didn't. I mean, it was just wrong to have this read out in court. It was just wrong. I mean, but he was allowed to do this for his bail conditions he broke. Nothing was done about it. The court didn't know about it. You know, he continued his, every time I appeared in court, he would get in touch with my nephew. He got in touch with me. Why? He phoned him. My nephew said, if it was you in court today, Marnie, yes. Every time you're in court, he tries to phone me. He's trying to get my sister's number from him, you know, through Facebook and Messenger and everything.
Relentless.
He was sending messages to my oldest son. He was, you know.
Has the behaviour stopped now?
Yes.
And what do you think made him stop the behaviour? What do you think the turning point was in that?
Oh, I don't know. Well, the court, I think the court system, I think
That was enough for him to realise you wouldn't put up with it?
Yeah, yes, I think, I didn't.
Yeah.
I think he knew that I would report him, you know, yes, I wouldn't. He did try to get in touch with me. He did send me a picture of himself, an email at one point in between it all. I think he did realise I just wouldn't, you know, communicate with him. He did send me a message on, I think, LinkedIn through another person. He has tried to get in touch with me through other people. You know, I think he knows that I just won't have anything to do with. He knows that I won't have anything to do with him. I know now he's completely moved away, which is such a relief. Such a relief.
You can breathe easy.
It is such a relief to know that he's moved away. It really, really is, that I can, you know, go back to where places that I just loved. That's nice.
Absolutely.
You know.
And that is a common unfortunate aspect of experiencing these types of behaviors, is that it reduces your world. You stop going to the places you love to go. You stop contacting the people that you normally would.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, he bought. I mean, I know this. He actually bought a graveyard plot in the graveyard. He bought a plot of there. He said, "I bought you a plot in the graveyard."
He bought you a plot?
He said, "I bought you a plot in the graveyard, yeah, in Logie, in Blair Logie."
Wow.
Which was scary.
Mm-hmm.
That was scary.
And was that before you had contacted the police and started that journey?
It was in this summer of 2017. This was then, yeah. He says, I've bought you a plot. It's like, why would you buy a plot there? He says, I know how much you look like, my dad and my granddad are there. And it's just a lot of, it's just eerie.
And so Anne Moulds, our CEO of Action Against Stalking, helped supported you throughout this journey.
Yes.
How did you find Anne?
I found Anne through the Susie Lamthorne Trust.
Yeah, yeah.
I had, at one point, because of all the delays and the I thought the court system that what happened, you just went to court and it was a few days and it was finished. I just assumed that that's what happened. I didn't realise that
We're going to be 38 postponements later.
I didn't realise that. I just thought that it was, it was you went for a couple of hours, a few hours, and then it was finished. It just didn't happen that way for me. Particularly when he was continuing to get in touch with everyone around me, which has made it awful, and it still continues to ricochet through my family to this day, which has made it really hard. And I got in touch with them, and they put me in touch with Anne, Action Against Stalking, and I emailed Anne. And to this day, I can remember I emailed Anne, and I can remember the day that Anne phoned me. To be honest, she picked up the phone. She phoned me, and I can remember the very minute she phoned me.
Right.
Yeah, and she's always there. To be honest, she's just always. I've come out of court and she's picked up the phone. I've picked up the phone in distress, and
Oh,
she has. She's helped me on a number of occasions, because my case hasn't been straight down the line. It's had a lot of twists and turns, and she's kind of kept me calm, and because it's been horrendous.
Mm-hmm.
It's been horrible, and she's very calming.
And would you say that helped keep your will of resilience up through this process?
Yes, because I don't know what. Yes, don't know what I'd have done without her.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't know what I would have done without her, because she's helped me understand. She's helped me understand coercive behaviour, a narcissist. You can read what you like on the internet, but when somebody's actually telling you and helping you understand it, this behaviour, and going around your family, and making you believe in yourself, and it's not your, because you blame yourself, and you think, well, I should have just walked away. I can hear my dad saying, why didn't you, you should have walked away, and you should have, but you can, I don't think I could have, but like, stalking, it's you don't get away from it. The person just keeps going at it. That's why it's called. It's yes. You. I kept trying to get away from it. He just wouldn't stop it. You can keep going back and back and back through it. He just kept coming. He wasn't. Police Scotland, they are very good in it. They are now trained in it, and that's when I went so far back, they said no, go right back, right back, and they seen how far back it went, right back. We want you to go right back to the beginning.
They helped you acknowledge that it was a
It wasn't. It wasn't. It was. They took me right back to the beginning, and they seen pattern. Yeah. Yeah.
Any advice you would give to anybody out there that is experiencing stalking behavior?
Eh,
As far as who to reach out to, what to do? logging evidence?
Yeah, I would. Well,
Any
I would
advice like
write.
that?
Yes, I would log evidence. Yes, I've got notes everywhere. I kept. I didn't log things at the time. I've logged things throughout my court process that I've got written everywhere. I would. Anybody could reach out to me if they want. I would say, reach out to me. I would be there for anyone now. And I know yous are there. You know, reach out to. I think it's hard to reach out to your. It was hard for me to reach out to anyone, I think.
Mm.
I think it's easy to say reach out to your family. I don't think.
Not in all circumstances, no.
Not in all circumstances. That the first person you would think to reach out to would maybe be your mum or your, you know, but it just wasn't for me. It really wasn't for me. But I think I would say Action Against Stalking, reach out to them, and I would say, it is hard because not everybody understands it, and it is old fashioned, isn't it? It's people don't understand. That is a tricky. I'm sorry to say that is a tricky one.
It is.
It is a tricky one.
It is.
Very tricky.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at all your online things at the moment, and you're saying online is hard because I was stalking you online, and people laugh about it.
Yeah, it's almost become a social norm, which we're trying to tackle. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And change the language and change the attitudes.
Change the attitude to
It's not a joke.
It's not a joke, is it? It's not a joke. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
All what you're putting online at the moment is,
I want to thank you so very much for coming today and sharing your story, Marnie. I admire your strength and your resilience in getting through this. And even though you didn't have a positive outcome within the criminal court system, you've had a positive outcome because you're still here. You're able to talk. You're able to help other victims by doing so. And your stalking experience is over.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so very much.